Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the NAPC Forum 2020 Tour of Tacoma. My name is Chris Staudinger. I am a tour guide owner-operator for a company called Pretty Gritty Tours that is based here in the city of Tacoma, and it is my genuine pleasure to be the guy who gets to introduce you to our fair city. Obviously, it would be fantastic if this got to happen in person, but I'm pretty sure I'm very confident that we can get you to still fall in love with Tacoma, even from afar. So if you guys are feeling ready, let's jump right in. I don't know what everyone's familiarity is with Tacoma, but my hope is that after getting some introduction to the city, it becomes a place that you want to come visit at some point in the future, and certainly something that you get to walk away with a little bit of fun trivia for, if nothing else. I'm gonna do a sort of a multimedia thing for you guys so that you get to experience the city as best as we can. And then if you are planning on attending the other virtual tours, you'll get to see more of my shining face as we go through this journey. We are going to be doing a tour of the Stadium High School and Stadium District, as well as the Pantages Theater and a cool little neighborhood in Tacoma called Salmon Beach. So lots to look forward to, but let's just get you guys introduced to the city of Tacoma without further ado. So Tacoma is a hidden treasure. It is a large city over here in the state of Washington, over on the Pacific coast, smaller than Seattle, larger than Olympia, our capital, but it is often forgotten. It's sort of like the blue-collar sister to Seattle, and it's a tragic story because Tacoma was actually going to be the it city in Washington for a long period of time there. In fact, when the railroad finally connected the East and West Coast for the first time ever in history, Tacoma was the terminus for the Western Portal. And unfortunately, a bunch of financial crisis and political jockeying maneuvered all of that power and love up to Seattle. And so all those Yukon gold miners coming in from the north really kickstarted their economy, and Seattle became the more famous of the two cities. But it's important to note that it was ours first. And Seattle did launch a smear campaign calling Tacoma a, quote, town of sawdust and fleas, end quote, which really isn't fair. And I'm hoping to put some of that to rest at this point, because I don't think it paints an accurate portrait of what Tacoma actually is. So the first and most important thing, really, I guess, when we're talking about Tacoma is to acknowledge the fact that we are on the ancestral lands of the Puyallup and Nisqually tribes. The Puyallup and Nisqually are still in the area, but Tacoma itself actually gets its name from the mountain here. So this is Mount Rainier. It's over 14,000 feet on a clear day, which is not often, granted. You can actually see the mountain from almost anywhere in Tacoma. And the traditional name for the mountain is Tahoma. That was a name that stuck. And so when the first sort of settlers out here with the McCarver gang who named the city of Tacoma, they named it Tahoma, Tacoma, in honor of the mountain. And it worked. It stuck for a long period of time there. And as a company, Pretty Gritty, we got our name from the juxtaposition that you get to experience while you're out here, because the mountain itself and the surrounding sort of beauty and nature of this area is exquisite. It's very pretty. But we are also a deep water industrial port, and it can get kind of gritty at times. So we try to highlight the pretty and the gritty in all that we do, and I'm not going to shy away from that with you guys today. Pictured here is the Port of Tacoma. It is the largest port in the state of Washington, both in area and the volume that it processes. And it is connected right here to Commencement Bay, which is a naturally deep saltwater port right in the Puget Sound. And to kind of give you guys a frame of what we're talking about in case you're not familiar with the area at all, here's the state of Washington in all of its glory here. Let's see if I can bring this up a little clearer for you guys. And Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia all sit down here on the Puget Sound, which feeds in from the Pacific Ocean there, and then just has this stunning network of saltwater that runs through the interior of the state there. And Tacoma is that red section right down there. So it basically forms this sweet peninsula out into the water there. And all of that lighter section of water is Commencement Bay. What you're looking at is the Puyallup River here, which follows right along Highway 167. And then because it's such a forceful volume of water and has a silty bottom, it often feeds out into Commencement Bay, this sort of milky silt, giving it the trademark color out there. But you can see Port of Tacoma is this entire area out here. It's roughly the size of like basically 2/3 of the city itself. So it's a massive area. And then Tacoma runs all along the waterfront here. This is unincorporated Browns Point out there, and then all Tacoma here with the tiny town of Ruston perched on the top there. And then the Point Defiance Zoo, Aquarium, Park, Living History Museum, all of that is up there on the north end there. So hopefully that frames a little more context for you guys when we're talking about the pretty and gritty sides of this city. And again, I wish this was all stuff that we could be showing you in person, but I'm going to do my best from where we are. So Tacoma, the slogan was the city of destiny, and that was coined by this awesome real estate developer, Alan C. Mason, and he was the major proponent for Tacoma becoming the it town. Real estate was cheap, opportunities were bountiful, and the secondary slogan, the city where rails meet sails, was really the key to that fortune. So pictured here is that original Tacoma waterfront, and you can see you can bring a ship, like a heavy deep ocean ship, right up to the shore here. And because it was such a deep water port, they never had to dredge it, and it had a shallow grade leading out of it. So you could bring a rail line right down to the waterfront there, as is pictured over here on the left of your screen. And so from there, you could take something off a train, put it on a ship, or vice versa, and it became such a major economic hub. So this also depicts on the left there the world's longest wheat warehouse, just over a mile long there. Only one section of it remains today, and it is currently the Foss Waterway Maritime Seaport. But on the right there, you get to see all of those sacks of grain being deposited. And so from more than just Washington, several surrounding states could send their grain via rail up to Port of Tacoma, and then they would ship it out, usually as far as China. Shanghai was a major trade port with Tacoma as early as the 1880s. So it was an important hub, both for people coming from the East Coast, as we hoped that you would have at this point, and people coming from essentially the Far East. So this was a major economic hub. And it was the first one before Seattle stole it all away from us. I'm not bitter about it. Maybe it's Coach, but it's a fair part of the narrative. I do want to show you guys really quick here just some sweet aerial shots of Tacoma so that you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So this is Port of Tacoma. And then you really get to see, as we swing across Commencement Bay there, the immediate development of downtown historic Tacoma. Right here is Old City Hall from 1893. The exterior of this building are actually Chinese ballast bricks, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Here's our First Presbyterian Church. And right down here is the Foss Waterway. This is a naturally occurring inlet that stabs right through the heart of Tacoma and essentially separates Port of Tacoma from downtown Tacoma. And you're looking across Foss Waterway here into downtown Tacoma. One of the things that I love about the city too is that because of the tumultuous ups and downs of Tacoma, like every time we thought we were going to become the it city, the terminus for the railroad, whatever big economic success, Tacoma thinks it's about to have, usually something bad happens, and that's robbed away from the history of the city. But because of that, every time something good happens, there's a huge swell of development. And then when it goes away, there's not enough money to really do a lot of demolition or redevelopment. And so today, when you go around Tacoma, we are really very lucky to have a lot of those original historic structures. Old City Hall is a great example of a building that has been slated for demolition several times. And fortunately, there was never enough funding or interest to make it happen. And we end up getting to keep those historic structures. So we're very, very lucky for that. Let me see if I can bring up my section for you guys here again so we can take you back into the city of Tacoma. There we are. So when we're talking about rails meet sales, another important part of the narrative to that is the fact that because it was such a major train hub, we got to put some fancy details on the whole thing. And what you're looking at right here is Union Station. It is right downtown in the heart of Tacoma. And if it looks familiar to some East Coasters out there, it's because it was designed by the same architecture firm that did Grand Central Terminal. They were actually working on the projects around the same time. And they have a very similar feel to them, in fact. Union Station operated as a train station well past the 1960s, when eventually the last train left that station. It lay derelict for a long period of time, and it itself was going to be torn down, but there was never enough money or interest until through a series of people really coming forward trying to save this building, it actually ends up getting purchased by the federal government and turned into the federal courthouse down here in the city of Tacoma. But you can see on the back of the building, facing away from the main street in front of it, the rail lines went straight up to the back of that building there. And so all the trains would just get there, people would board and then go about their way. And it's interesting because those rail lines are still active there. We don't shy away from our industrial blue-collar port town vibe at all. We are very much an active rail port, seaport, hardworking town across the board. And when you're looking at the city of Tacoma, you can still see all those major lines running through. But we're also a classy city of art and distinction. So this is just next door to Union Station today. This is the Chihuly Glass Bridge. And the cone shape in the back there is the hot shop for the Museum of Glass downtown. So that's where they do all their glass blowing and demonstrations. And Dale Chihuly, you're probably familiar, very world famous glass artist. I don't want to assume anything, but he is a Tacoma native. He graduated from Stadium High School. He studied up at University of Washington and then continued his journey sort of discovering what his life's passion was throughout Europe. And that's where he got the love for glass. There is a Chihuly glass station down in the city of Tacoma, even though the most famous one, as with so many things, is up in Seattle. But he got his start here, and his heart still belongs to the city of Tacoma. You can see a lot of his art, interestingly enough, for free just downtown in the city of Tacoma, and the Glass Bridge is a good example of that. The hot shop there, that cone shape, is reminiscent of one of these. This is a beehive burner, and when the city of Tacoma was founded as a lumber town, all of these beehive burners sort of lined the waterfront down there, and that was a place where you could burn all your excess wood slag, and the dome on top was supposed to catch the sparks so the entire city didn't burn down, which, unlike Seattle, our city never did. So when you're downtown and you see that stack there, it's an homage to the beehive burner. This is the Venetian portion of the Chihuly Glass Bridge, and it's an example of those free Chihuly glass exhibits. A lot of people, ironically, assume that there's a lot of Chihuly glass in the Museum of Glass, but in fact, it's the bridge leading up to the Museum of Glass. The Union Station lobby actually has a great deal of Chihuly glass in it, and then there are a few other installations. In fact, the bar back of a local sort of dive bar called the Swiss actually has a showcase of the Venetian vases as well. So if you're looking for Chihuly glass in downtown Tacoma, you don't have to look far from just a free public installation. And that, for me, is one of the trademark beautiful parts of Tacoma, is that while we have this really rich, high-class, globally famous art scene, we like to just install it downtown, right above the train tracks, overlooking the port. We don't shy away from who we are. This is a good example of the sort of historic buildings that you get to see in downtown Tacoma, and a lot of them have been repurposed as communal workspaces. My favorite is right downtown with the University of Washington campus here in Tacoma. The spur line of the railroad used to come right up and then go downtown. So I'm going to fly you guys downtown here really quick. You can see, so this is, you can see the beehive burner over here with the Museum of Glass. This is the Washington State History Museum right there. And then right downtown is Union Station. And across the street, you can see this angled section here used to be the spur line of the railroad as it would come up from down on the waterfront. And all of this section here, I'll take you down to the street view really quick so you can see it, was general stores, warehouses, train facilities. And today it is the University of Washington Tacoma campus. And a lot of these buildings are amazing because they still have the ghost art on the side of them. I think the most famous, you can just see the corner of it up there, is the Harmon building up there. But it's got all these original facades, like the Davies building. The Vagel Candy Company is the white building here. They haven't been in operation since 1903, but we have all these great brick buildings downtown, and they've been preserved and then repurposed as an academic facility. And it's something that's pretty lucky to have over here on the West Coast. A lot of our more historic structures would have been built out of wood or demolished to be used for something else on very limited real estate. And so to have the city of Tacoma having all of the rich history that it still has and to have it visible is pretty exceptional. Like I was mentioning earlier here, so this is Old City Hall, and it's just a gorgeous building across the board. And it's amazing because, like I said, the exterior of this building are all Chinese ballast bricks. When development was happening early on in the city of Tacoma, they found that when Chinese ships would arrive to Commencement Bay, they would offload their ballast bricks. And it just became a really cheap, sometimes free building resource out there that they could use to then build these buildings. So the exterior of this building is all Chinese bricks, and then a lot of Italian Renaissance imported stone as well, sort of for the lighter areas here. Fun fact too, the clock tower is actually an addition. 5 years after the completion of the main building, they added the clock tower as a memorial for the young daughter of Hugh Wallace, who was the American ambassador to France, who lived obviously in Paris and Washington, D.C., but the third city he occupied was the city of Tacoma, where his family resided the majority of the time. And when their daughter unfortunately passed at the young age of 14, they had 4 bells cast by the same company that did the Liberty Bell, and then those still reside in the tower there today. It's also an exceptional building because the first official jail for the city of Tacoma was in Old Town Tacoma, down on the waterfront, and it was just a wooden structure spiked together. And when they really wanted to upgrade to something more long-term, they put jail cells in the bottom of Old City Hall that are still there today. This is what they look like currently. The Old City Hall building hasn't been used as a city hall since 1953, and for the most part has lain vacant. Currently has been purchased and is looking to be redeveloped into a massive community center, bars, restaurants, technology center, micro apartments, you name it, it'll be inside. But these jail cells currently look like this, and they are just underneath the building as it is today. along with quite a bit of this rough-hewn basement down there. So it is an extraordinary building. I don't have an exact knowledge of the square footage, but I think it's approximately a lot. Tacoma is the claim to fame to a lot of pretty cool things. Dashiell Hammond, while not from Tacoma, the father of the noir film and novel genre, recovered from tuberculosis here in Tacoma. And this is where he made the official switch from Pinkerton detective to novelist. And by far his most famous novel, The Maltese Falcon, is in some ways based on his experiences here in Tacoma, and a few parts of it actually take place in Tacoma as well. Almond Roca is entirely produced here in Tacoma. All of its global distribution has always taken place here in the city of Tacoma and will forever and always. They have the same facility that they've always been based in, and 100% of the candy that you see around the world created right here in that original facility, downtown Tacoma. We also have the, I'm going to call it a claim to fame of having been the 1963 world headquarters for octopus wrestling, which, if you're thinking it's something more glamorous than it sounds, you'd be mistaken. It is where you free dive into the frigid waters of the Puget Sound, find the largest octopus that you can, and wrestle it to the surface. For so many reasons, just so many reasons. It's not a thing that happens at all anymore, but for a period of time, it did take place. Also, that Flatiron building with the very charming yellow stucco on it that you're looking at there is the first place that anyone formally recommended in the late 1800s that during the national anthem, people should stand and remove their hats. So there's some fun stories to the city of Tacoma. Cartoonist Gary Larson is born and raised here. We are the home of Bing Crosby. A lot of good stuff happens in Tacoma. I don't want to talk you to death about it, but I will pepper it in here at a few moments here and there. And above all else, I just would like to maintain the fact that Tacoma is a cool city and it's got a lot going on for it. One of the things that makes us so popular today and always is that we've always been a brewery city. Very early on in the late 1800s, Tacoma found itself nicely situated on a series of artesian wells, and the German and Croatian immigrants that were coming to the area found that they could make the absolute best beer there. And they did so. In a lot of cases, it was almost more popular than our sister city to the south, Olympia, home of Olympia Brewing. And a lot of this beer hit massive distribution because, again, you could just take it right from the brewery, put it on a ship or a train and send it wherever you needed to. And it could get there very quickly, which was great in a time before refrigeration and bottling. What unfortunately happened is, of course, Prohibition put a damper on our spirits. And then when the beer industry took back off again, it kind of got dwarfed by Rainier up in Seattle, kind of buying everything out in the area. And then Olympia Beer to the south, putting sort of a sad gloom on everything here in Tacoma. But our microbrewery scene has rebounded with zeal. You could find any number of microbreweries here in the city of Tacoma with anything from like a very traditional Irish vibe to it to a very modern and eclectic feel from the Pacific Northwest. So the whole spectrum of microbrews is in the area, and I will have more to talk about that in some of the future tours we'll be doing. But I wanted you to at least know what we got going on. Tacoma is also home to some very famous academic architecture. One of the very beautiful buildings we have here is done by a guy named Frederick Heath. Frederick Heath designed Lincoln High School here. And Lincoln High School's rival is a school that you might be more familiar with. This is Stadium High School. Stadium High School was originally designed to be a luxury hotel for the North Pacific Railroad, which really sort of ran the industry out here. And unfortunately, the financial collapse in the 1870s ruined all the plans that the North Pacific had for opening this building as a luxury hotel, and it ends up becoming just an empty building until the school district of Tacoma made the very shrewd decision to purchase the building and turn it into a high school. So from the early 1900s, it has operated as a high school and nothing else ever since. And I think it gets probably its most global fame from the fact that it was featured in 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles. If you haven't seen it, it's a phenomenal high school rom-com coming-of-age film, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. Honestly, it's withstood the test of time, and it's good stuff. The thing that made Stadium High School famous originally, though, wasn't the dreaminess of Heath Ledger, but in fact, the stadium. So Frederick Heath, the same guy who did Lincoln High School, actually did the finalized project of Stadium High School after the project was abandoned by the North Pacific Railroad. And his real signature flourish was the stadium that you're looking at here. It was originally designed to have a seating capacity of 35,000 people. I think the record that anyone's ever recorded is an estimated 64,000 people in attendance. And every major event, rodeos, military parades, 4 different U.S. presidents have given addresses down there. Sporting events, obviously, it was such a major part of the community and beyond. It was seen as the greatest amphitheater on the West Coast for a period of time. And this illustration here represents just how ambitious their plans were, because for a period there, Frederick Heath had the intention of putting a domed roof on the entirety of the project. You'll see here in a second, I'm going to give you guys some aerial eye candy of the whole thing. They never put the roof on it, which is great because it would have just bankrupted the city. I'm very, very confident. Let's see if I can bring this one up for you guys here really quick. So this is Stadium High School. It is modeled after a French chateau. And yeah, this is 295,000 square feet of public high school, which is just jaw-dropping. It's perched here on the cliff above Tacoma. It is a public school, non-charter. Like, if you're in the zone, you go here. And yes, to answer your question, from all the students I've ever spoken to, they don't realize how good they have it until they're gone. And just to the south end of the screen here is where the Stadium Bowl resides. And you can see it just is the American Hogwarts. It looms on the cliff above all else and really is a signature point of pride for the city of Tacoma. It has a lot of cool little extra tidbits to it. It has a series of tunnels that extend underneath the entirety of it. And because it was designed originally as a luxury hotel, there is actually a dog kennel and a wine cellar underneath the building. Both are very well hidden and have been sealed off to the best of the school's ability because they don't want students getting trapped down in either of those. But there's also an underground swimming pool. There were 2 originally installed in the early 1900s. Both of those were demolished, and they made way for the underground swimming pool that they have there today, which is, I believe it's Olympic sized. It's a massive underground swimming pool and a huge undertaking. So it's a very cool public school. And we are going to be talking more about it for one of our upcoming tours here. So if you'd like to see the interior of that building or talk more about the neighborhood, you're in luck, because I got that all coming up for you guys. One of my favorite buildings in Tacoma that I always like to introduce people to on both our driving and walking tours, and now for you guys on our virtual escapade, is the Federal Building here. And to give you guys a little more insight into this building, I'm actually going to turn things over to my colleague, Paul, with Pretty Gritty here, and I'll let him tell you more about this building right now. If I can get it set up. Here we go.
Paul here from Pretty Ready Tours, and today we're inside Courthouse Square, one of Tacoma's most prominent historical buildings and one of our favorites. It's been here for over 100 years, and in that time, it has been the host to so many different things, from emergency fallout shelters, Red Cross stations for volunteer workers during World War I, and a courthouse for many of Tacoma's most historical and prominent cases. In addition, the building hosts one of the oldest post offices in the city of Tacoma. It's been here for nearly 100 years and has gone through so much history. In 1925, federal narcotic agents destroyed over $100,000 worth of illegal substances here in this building. As well, inside the courtroom, some of the most prominent and landmark cases in the city of Tacoma's history have taken place. Personally, I think this is one of the most beautiful buildings in Tacoma. Until next time, we're Pretty Ready Tours, and we want to show you the city that we love.
All right. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, you get to see a little bit more about the federal building there, and it's not alone. It's just a personal favorite of mine. We have some incredible buildings, including the second armory ever built in the state of Washington. It looks like this brick fortress with the tower and the crenellations on it. And it looks almost like an airplane hangar on the interior of the building there, because they would use it for artillery drills. You could get something even as large as a howitzer onto the drill floor in there, and they would just practice loading, going through the mechanism of firing something like that without actually firing live munitions through the wall. It also housed a cavalry headquarters. So they had a horse stable inside the building for a period of time there. And that is now a shared space run by the city of Tacoma and under the same stewardship of the people that work with the Pantages Theater. And the Pantages is something we're going to talk more about. That's one of our big tours coming up here. So stay tuned for that one. But let me take you guys a little bit farther into the city here. This, I think, is just worth talking about because it is the crown jewel of the downtown area and gives you a look at the city that kind of began it all. This is the Northern Pacific Railroad headquarters. It still exists today. I can take you guys to the virtual map really quick, and you'll be, I hope, stunned to find that this building looks basically the same that it always did. So you can see this is the Foss Waterway Seaport right here. So that's the last remaining section of the world's longest grain storage facility. The train tracks still run right outside the building, and perched on the hill in exactly the same location that it's always been is the Northern Pacific Railroad building. And it's incredible because right across the street is the old City Hall building, and it's got that beautiful rotunda on top and sits in the same location that it always did. So here's the illustration of the design for it. Here is the early construction of it, and like if you switch back and forth really quick, you can see it's the same building that it's always been. Not everything in Tacoma, however, has been built to last, unfortunately. One of our more famous structures that unfortunately has left us was the original Narrows Bridge. Now, if you've noticed early on, the city of Tacoma is very much surrounded by water. And so over here, connecting us to the peninsula, is this very long bridge over an impossibly deep and swift moving section of the Puget Sound. And this is the Tacoma Narrows. The original Narrows Bridge was completed on July 1st, 1940, and then by November 7th, 1940, was destroyed. And what ended up happening was the way that they designed it, they didn't account for the harmonic vibrations that would be caused by wind blowing over it. And just like a plucked guitar string, it vibrated the first high wind that ripped through the Narrows and actually shook itself apart. And I've got a quick clip for you guys here of that actually happening. and it is something to behold. Let's see if I can get it set up for you guys here really quick. Here we go. Yeah, so this is footage of the Narrows Bridge starting to rock itself apart. Amazingly enough, as you can see here, no one is too panicked by it. When it started vibrating like that and really swaying, people had enough time to exit their cars, get off the bridge, and then actually come and observe the entire thing. It wasn't until deep into this process that it actually shook itself apart and sank to the bottom of the Narrows. There was only one fatality from this entire incident. It was an old dog named Tubby, and Tubby refused to get out of the car. Tubby's owner was a young woman whose father had taken Tubby to the vet, and he just refused to get out of the car. Several people, including a journalist, tried to get him out, and he bit a couple of them. So he unfortunately sank to his fate, knowing full well what he'd committed to. As you can see here, the bridge just was destroyed, absolutely gone. And when it sank to the bottom of the Narrows, an interesting thing ended up happening where it created a natural, well, not natural, but a reef down at the bottom there. And that section of the Narrows is just over 200 feet deep. And this reef really created a safe harbor, if you will, for a lot of marine life down there. And that is where they discovered the largest specimen of the giant Pacific octopus. This massive octopus is the sort of unofficial mascot for the city of Tacoma. You'll notice octopi on a lot of our branding and slogans. The Kraken reaching up over the bridge is popular graffiti art all over the area here. And that large specimen is down there, perhaps avenging the lost octopi from the wrestling championships back in the day. But the Narrows Bridge is, I think, one of the more famous parts to the city of Tacoma. I think it's something that got taught in like fourth grade building bridge classes. I know a lot of people that aren't from the area are at least familiar with Galloping Gertie, is what they called her back in the 1940s. One of the other places that I think is very unknown but truly exquisite is this building here. This is the interior of the Pythian Temple, and they are one of the oldest secret societies in the United States, and they have a very, very old lodge here in the city of Tacoma. And it's interesting because the city of Tacoma used to have a very rich Japantown right in the heart of Tacoma. And obviously, especially being so close to Hawaii and very much on the West Coast, during World War II with the concentration camps, the entire Japanese population was removed from the city of Tacoma, and so much of that history and legacy was lost. But all of the wood on the interior of the secret society, the Pythian brothers, was hand carved by those Japanese carpenters that were in the area, and it is still exactly the way that it was. This picture, as you see it here, is what the interior of the Pythian Lodge looks like today, and it's just a snapshot back into the past. And so we're lucky to have this historic structure still here, not just intact, but as a functional society here in the city of Tacoma as it is. So with that, I'm hoping that I've given you an opportunity to get to know Tacoma a little bit more. It is a rich maritime community, a hardworking blue-collar city, a pioneer in so many different things. And above all else, we are fiercely loyal and covetous of so much of our knowledge. We are a city that has a lot of weird quirks to it. I think one thing I want to take you guys down to see here really quick is one of my favorite dive bars in the city is Bob's Java Jive. And I think it is just a perfect representation of the city of Tacoma. Down here, if we can take you into the Nally Valley. Nally Valley Chili and Canning is a Tacoma institution. And so right down here in this just sort of unobtrusive port, sort of dirty industrial neighborhood that not many people know about or think about is this 1920s coffee shop, Bob's Java Jive. While it started as a roadside stand for automobiles coming through the area, kind of hit its max popularity for a period of time in the 50s and 60s. It quickly transitioned from a coffee shop into a wacky bar. They added on the jungle room in the back where they had monkeys for a long period of time, and you could feed the monkeys peanuts while you're drinking your beer. It became a real important hotbed for the music scene here in Tacoma. Nirvana has played here. The Wailers have played here. Elvis has been in the building, though he is no longer. But he hasn't actually played music there. It was just a really important part of the music scene, not just for Tacoma, but for the greater state of Washington as well. And has become this just signature Tacoma thing where they don't like to promote it. It is just a Tacoma place. And when you're pulling up to it, you're like, oh, for sure, this place is closed. This place has been closed and condemned forever. But if you just push open the door and you're not dissuaded by the lack of an open sign, inside is this just bustling community of true Tacoma people. They do nightly karaoke. The first karaoke of the first Friday karaoke of every month is pirate themed karaoke. Not pirate songs. You dress like a pirate and go. And it's just a cool place. Keanu Reeves was briefly in Tacoma filming a movie here and fell in love with Bob's Java Jive. And he is the only person who's ever been extended an offer to purchase the building. It's still owned by the same family that originally opened it. And he still has a standing offer to purchase it, but Keanu wants to pick it up and move it to Hawaii. And that's outside of the conditions that they're willing to work with. So Bob's is still right downtown Tacoma, not attracting any attention, but still just like iconic, strange, passionate, and cool Tacoma. And with that, I think that's a good button for you guys. Moving forward, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on our live and interactive tours. Like I said, we're going to talk about the Pantages Theater then and now. We get to talk about the Stadium High School and surrounding neighborhood and the very eclectic neighborhood of Salmon Beach. So we've got a lot of cool historic stories for you guys. I'm looking forward to actually hanging out in a live tour where you can ask questions and then I can actually bounce back and forth with you guys. So thank you for joining us virtually for this expedition into the city of Tacoma. I'm looking very much forward to seeing you guys as we continue moving forward. And once again, my name is Chris here with Pretty Gritty Tours. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys very, very soon. Until then, keep on exploring.